me to be here. Thank you so much for welcoming me. I have been downloading notes from God since Christine texted me to ask me to speak. And so I was going to put together like this really structured and beautiful presentation, and decided not to do that. I was up most of the night sick because I have an ear infection and the antibiotics didn't agree with me. And it changed my whole structure, so I decided to go with this concept of sitting and talking to you from my heart as a mother, especially, ear infection, like taking me back to, pink amoxicillin in a bottle, and little tiny ones crying and, because they're in pain. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity just to talk to you from my heart about, I was asked to speak on how to raise a creative child, and I actually do know how to do that. So, and then I do know how to do that in my personal life, and then have the incredible gift of having children come back to you. My oldest daughter's 33, and she's just wrapping up a movie that she's producing this is her first time being the producer. And she called me, she's like, Mom, can you drive with me? Will you fly to New Orleans, which is where she lives? Will you fly to New Orleans and drive with me to Los Angeles, because I need to be there for 18 weeks to edit the movie. And this has been our time together. We would do road trips together from the time we were little. So to really take you into what my experience was, to provide some encouragement that I've learned through teaching children, which has been one of the true privileges of my life, is to teach other people's children creativity. Because there's a big win out there for you if you can allow your children to be who they came here to be. And they may decide to be an artist. They may decide to be a scientist or an accountant, but creativity plays into all of those things. And the payoff for seeing who they are and allowing them to be who they are is huge, because you want that phone call. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you want to be the first one to get the phone call. Hey, I got the job. Hey, this is happening for me, and thank you. That's been the most massive payoff of my entire life. So, so it's really wonderful for me to be here, because I'm a believer. I believe that love is the most creative driving force of the universe, and it's here to support all of us. And yet I teach other people's children, and so I don't bring that language into my classroom. I bring a language that art is love. And you are allowed in this space of creativity to be exactly who you are. There are no mistakes, there are only opportunities. And I allow my art studio with the children to be a place of yes. You want that? Yes, I'm gonna make that happen for you. You wanna do it that way? Absolutely yes. How can I help you? What do you need? And truly I have discovered truly the only thing to say to a child when they present you with their artwork, because make no mistake, their artwork is their sacred conversation between them and God. And truly, we have no place in commenting, correcting, or saying anything, because our words are so powerful. The only really, truly helpful thing to say is, tell me about it. Because they are drawing you into their world, into their conversation, into their attempt, their tiny little beautiful attempt to understand human reality. And they're doing it through art, in what they draw, in what they create. So this listening is super duper important. I just can't emphasize it enough. There's this whole culture of fear out there. My child is artistic, they want to be an artist, they're never going to make any money. I'm not going to pay for art school. And I honestly think it was a major decision to pay for art school. It's but you know what? It's where did this belief come from that creativity doesn't pay because it's not true, right? And we have this fear from the time that they're little. Are they going to fit in? Who are they going to be? Right? Are people going to like them? Are they going to be nice to them? I want to prepare them. I want to keep them safe, which is beautiful, because don't we all want to be safe? Right? But there is also great safety in believing your child when they tell you this is who I am. And any other path is a path of pain. Any other path is a path of pain. So, all that being said, I'd like to start by doing what I do with the children, which is I take 3 deep breaths, and I always sneak a 4th one in at the end to enter the art making space. So if we could start together, and I say to them, like, if you never learn anything else from me when you're in my classroom, please remember that you have inside of you an internalized mechanism to control your anxiety and your feelings, and it's called your breath. And I know you all remember that in the beginning of Genesis, God breathes breath into clay and creates man. Our breath is our connection to divine love. And so if you would take 3 breaths with me as we begin, that would be amazing. So we're going to start with just a really deep breath to feel present in our body, to feel present in the room. And you can put your hand on your heart if you want. It's just big, deep breath. And then releasing the breath. Another breath to surround your heart with love. And I tell the children this is where we make art from, is from our heart. So opening that space. And then another big deep breath to open our mind so that we can see the world new, like an artist sees the world. The final breath is to enter the art-making space. Big, deep breath. So, as we enter that art-making space together, what are we creating here? And hopefully we're creating a place where you acknowledge the sacred nature of your own motherhood. It is such a massive responsibility and a great joy to take a tiny little person to a place of adulthood. And you're doing that right now. I mean, I remember the diapers and the busyness and all the mess, right? And art is messy, and that's hard because I just remember just trying to control all the messes. And so if I could start by just like giving you a few ideas of encouragement in order to create space. The first thing that I would tell you in terms of raising a creative child is to honor your own creativity. So, do you remember that you are creative beings? Do you remember that you were once children and that you created with abandon and beauty? Because if you can go to that place, you can meet your child there, and then you can hear their voice. And they are telling you these sacred stories like they're so close to heaven. You know, as we grow up, I was trying to find that Wordsworth poem that he wrote. I majored in English literature in college. And he wrote a poem about how as we age, we lose our connection to divinity. And I think as adults, we spend most of our life trying to recapture that. And the children have it. And if you just look into their eyes after they've made a painting, they will tell you what they're thinking. They will tell you what they need and what their concerns are or what their joys are. So encouraging a creative space within a home takes a lot of courage. I mean, I didn't do it. I honestly didn't make my first large canvas work until I was 40. You know, I didn't give myself that permission. I make large canvas work now with 4-year-olds because I feel like they need that experience of like, and it is amazing to see a 4-year-old stand in front of a canvas that's taller than them and take a big paintbrush. And a 4-year-old has a very specific style, and most abstract artists, professional artists, are trying to imitate it because it's so beautiful. It's so balanced, the color, the form, they have it instinctually. And it's actually one of the things that I do is like, and you can do this at home. Buy the canvas, buy the paints. Everybody who comes out of my summer camps or my large canvas classes has a painting that they can hang on the wall at home, like I did that. And one of the best things that you can do is celebrate your children's art, putting it all over the refrigerator, framing it, putting it on their walls. Like that is a direct acknowledgement, like I see you. I see you, you're amazing, you're awesome, you're a creator. And you know what, they need that. They need that because they're gonna go out into the world. I raised 3 daughters and a son. People are gonna be mean to them. in the cafeteria. They're gonna, eat lunch on the toilet in the cafeteria, like you see in Mean Girls. My girls were all like, yeah, I did that. It's not, the world can be painful. They are gonna get hurt. I'm sorry to tell you that. And the best thing that you can do is totally approve of them at home. And inside of art is the perfect place to do it. Because nobody gets hurt. It's paper, it's canvas, it's pencils, it's just art materials. You can always start again. So it's not like if they get art wrong, you can't get art wrong. The way it's taught in the schools is like, yeah, no. It has to be like, the message is don't be like me and don't try to reproduce this. The message is be you. Be you. And when you nurture that in a child, it creates a really strong individual who can go out into the world, and when they are hurt, they're resilient because they received the message through art and through you that who they are is essentially good and beautiful and creative and strong. Art is the perfect place to teach this message, and it goes out into all the disciplines because it teaches like really nimble thinking. It teaches, oh yeah, I thought I made a mistake, but it actually wasn't a mistake. It was just an opportunity to try again. It was an opportunity to choose a new direction. I thought I totally screwed up my whole work, but maybe not. Or maybe, and I want to completely start again, or I'm gonna see if I can morph it. And this is like the big lesson of all of our lives. We think like, this happened to me, I'm never gonna be the same. I'm always gonna be wounded, I'm always gonna be hurt, but that's not really true. We can recreate our lives, and we learn that through art, and children instinctively can grasp this lesson. If you teach them that art is a super kind and gentle and encouraging place, they'll receive that message. And the thing is that from what I see, like my daughter Lizzie is really a painter. Of all my kids, she was painting, but she chose not to be a painter. No matter how much I encouraged her, provided materials, so I honored her path. And now she's, an amazing social worker. She won a Fulbright scholarship. She's living in Europe, and maybe someday she'll come back to painting. But painting served her for a time, and then she chose a different path. So, I think I see a lot of parents when their kids are really good at art, they're like, well, I'm afraid to encourage that because I don't know how they're gonna make a living. You know what, they can decide at any point, like I can be a painter and an accountant. I can be an engineer, I can have a way to raise a family that has, more of a path to it. I remember when I graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in English literature, and all of my professors were like, I don't even know how to help you get a job. And you know what I mean? I mean, like, that's real. So you have to have, some direction, and maybe you have a child who is gonna figure it out, and they just need you to trust them. So, but going back to this whole idea of self-care, like, do we honor our own creativity? Because your children are always watching you. One of the reasons I'm a painter, right here on York Road, there was a beautiful family, Rita and Joel Chiratilli. They own Bernard's Deli. I don't know if you don't know Bernard's Deli. So Michelle was one of my best friends in high school, and she invited me over. They had a big Italian family, and she invited me over for Sunday lunch. The house was like packed with people, and in the kitchen, her mom, Rita, and Rita passed away within the last year, she had a big canvas in the middle of the kitchen, and she's cooking. And there's this painting, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was allowed. That's allowed? Like, you are allowed to bring like art into your home, into your kitchen, and claim your place as an artist. And just by, not even with a word, just by living her own life, she was one of my great inspirations. So your children are always watching you. And so there's an idea that I'd like to present, which is to create an altar space. We're just going to call it that because we're all here in a church. With just a simple box of watercolors that you can buy on Amazon, and a brush, and a small pad of watercolor paper, and take a drawer in your kitchen and make a space for it. And pull it out. Keep it super simple. Watercolor is so forgiving. It doesn't stain countertops. It really doesn't stain clothes. It's easy to clean up. It's been my favorite medium for years. because I can take it with me anywhere, and it's like non-toxic, it doesn't hurt anybody. But you take it out, and you sit by yourself first, okay? By yourself first, and you get to know the colors. You remember, like, what do I love? Okay? What do you love, and will you allow yourself to love it? What color is your favorite, and why? Pink is always my favorite color. Always, always, always my favorite color. Unless I'm painting, and then it's bright purple watercolor. There's a specific manufacturer, excuse me. There's a specific manufacturer called Olvine, and their purple watercolor opens up pathways in my brain that make me immediately happy. As soon as that paint hits the paper, my mood changes. Okay? So can you take the time to learn that about yourself? Because it's really important. It's really important to you having a creative child and allowing that creativity. Is remembering, among all the busyness, among all the laundry and the cooking, who am I and what do I actually love? In nature, green, like of the oak trees, that little, like that chartreuse, those tiny buds in the spring, in nature, that's always my favorite color. But that's morphing now as I'm like really feeling into water. And I just finished a commission on water and all the different shades of blue. Do you know the different shades of blue? Do you know that in paint they all have names? I would encourage you to go online and spend a few dollars and get a watercolor set and keep it where you can find it. And maybe after you load the dishwasher, just pull it out. And maybe just for today, learn yellow. How does yellow make me feel? Where do I like to see it in my home? Do I like to wear it? Did I forget? What was my favorite color when I was in 3rd grade? I remember mine was yellow because I didn't think I was pretty enough to like pink. Because only like the fancy pretty girls got to have pink and purple as their favorite colors. So I like took the substitute of yellow. Which is probably why I don't really like yellow much today or pink with it because, yeah. So anyway, so there's a great element of acknowledging yourself as a creator and the child within you that still wants to create, and then being brave enough to have that experience with your child. Do you want to paint with me? Because they're going to want to paint with you. And they're going to get into your business. And they're going to get into your artwork. And can you be brave enough to separate the two? Like, this is time, like after everybody goes to bed, where maybe like, I've got the kitchen clean, the laundry's done. I'm just going to sit here, and among these 12 colors, I'm going to find out which ones I really like, and maybe I'm going to mix them together. And maybe that's going to be the next color I'm going to paint my dining room, even though everybody else thinks it's crazy to have a lavender dining room. It makes me happy. And you allow yourself that type of flexibility and those type of choices because they are absolutely yours to make. So, yeah, so I'm just gonna, I wrote all these notes. I think I want to tell you a couple of stories. So I have a son, his name is Joe, and he's such a beautiful human being. He was my youngest. He's 25. He's living in Los Angeles. And you know what? I didn't do a great job of always listening. And I didn't paint with my children when they were little. But I did listen, and I saw what they were good at, and I was able to identify, like, especially with my oldest, unless she does what she really loves, her life's gonna be a disaster. Like, I could see it. Like, if this kid does not like do what she came here to do, she's gonna end up very dissatisfied, and I'm gonna have to. She was always like, "Mom, it's always about you." But like, we do have to live with that, right? You have to live with seeing your child not reach their full potential. So there's a couple of stories. So I remember Joey when I was getting divorced when he was 12, and I took him to School of Rock in Hinsdale, and I signed him up because I knew he needed a creative outlet, and that's how he became a musician. Was like, I knew that there were places that I couldn't really help him, and that he needed a way to, express that. He's also highly dyslexic, and so music was a way for him to understand the world, because I couldn't really understand the way his brain was so scrambled all the time, and how that, when he was little, until he learned how to read, his behavior was like, oh my God, like I just didn't know what to do with him. He was always so angry. But then once he learned how to read, we were living overseas at the time, and we came back to the Lane School in Hinsdale, and they had what was her name, Barbara. It's a very specific reading program, and I like thank her almost, like I'm so grateful for her life because she developed this reading program where it was for children with high intelligence who had no ability to decode language. And he had like 94% comprehension, but like 3% in terms of decoding language. So it shows you there's an intelligence there that's unable to really interpret the world visually. So anyway, once he learned how to read, he became a completely different child. But dyslexia was something I didn't really understand, so I just kept looking for ways like, how do I play to his strengths? How do I find something he's good at? And it turned into, it was so funny. Because, you know, he got into Columbia down in Chicago, and I was really happy because he was like a solid C student. Coming out of Hinsdale Central, you know, this is a very stressful time. And so I thought he was going to go to college. And he graduated, and he was like, Mom, I know I told you I was going to go to college, but I was never going to go. And I'm gonna like take a year off, and then I'm gonna move to Los Angeles, and I'm gonna go to music production school. And I'm like, okay, so that wasn't my plan. I wasn't happy about that. There's still part of me that struggles with that. You know, you want your child to have a traditional education, right? You want him to be safe. I'm like, okay. So, but he's doing it, and he's doing beautiful things, and he's a beautiful human being. But he used to make me, this was the story I wanted to tell you, he used to make me lie on the island in the kitchen, and put headphones on, and he loved like Metallica and, you know, all those hard rock bands that like, I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't understand any of that. But he would make me listen to them, and he would tell me the stories of the musicians, and he would tell me about their lives and why they wrote the music, and he would explain to me the differences between these groups, and I could actually understand it. And I could hear the musical differences between these heavy metal groups that I didn't like. And he told me about what kind of music he wanted to make. It was very important. And you know that song, I think it's by America, I've been through the desert with a horse. It has this atmospheric quality that really attracts him. And so that was his dream, to make atmospheric music. He's doing that. And he started, and what's beautiful is his sister, because she has been successful, was able to help him get an internship in music licensing. And so you just don't know what miracles are going to unfold for your child if you trust that there is a God who is creative, who loves. And I find that like art is a territory of continual miracles. Anyway, so that was Joey, that he would, and I like treasure those moments. I wish I could go back to like, you know, and feel the cold, you know, granite countertop and like listening to music and having him explain it to you. How cool is that? Like, you want that experience, don't you? Right? I mean, and then Mary, I remember there was a point when she was, she actually graduated from boarding school in Ireland, and because we were living there at the time, and she came back and she was like kind of doubting herself, and she's like, well, maybe I should just major in history. And I was like, yeah, that's not happening. There will be a time that you're gonna have to stand for their dream when they're faltering. And that will be an important time. It would have been easy to say, she'd make a great lawyer, but her soul wouldn't have been satisfied. And the life of the soul is what really matters. And when we're in church, don't we believe in that? Don't we believe in that? Do we have the courage to allow our children to be who they actually are? Because art is the perfect place for you to actually hear their voice and their conversation with their own soul and the God of their being. So my daughter Elizabeth, when I was getting divorced, I was really scared about all things financial. And I remember she had just finished her sophomore year at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she was like, she had these dreams. And she was majoring in like gender and women's studies, German language, and philosophy. I knew when she took philosophy in high school that she found what she loved. And she, so that was great. I knew I had helped her find what she loved. Because I felt like that was my job as a parent, to like help them find what they love. And so, and I remember I was saying to her, like, honey, like, I don't know what the future holds. Maybe you need to major in something that you can get a job in when you graduate. And she said to me, we were walking the dogs, I remember she said, Mom, could you please just have a little faith in me? And you know what was so fascinating? So then she went on and got her master's degree in social work. And it was so interesting because she really wanted to do, she's just such a hard worker. And did try to go to law school, didn't really score the way she wanted to on the tests. And what was so beautiful is when she won her Fulbright scholarship, she had experienced the laws in the United States of like women, men, families trying to get children back that they had lost custody of. And there were requirements around housing, like you had to actually have a place to live in order to get your kid back. But there was nothing in place that you could actually find affordable housing. So that became her dream of like, and that's why she won the scholarship. She went to Vienna. She wanted to go to Vienna and study how they did public housing because it was a very different model. And so she felt like it was an equity issue, but like a social justice issue. And I'm so glad that I listened to her. You know, could you just have a little faith in me? It's really important. Don't you want somebody to have faith in you? It has made all the difference in my life, the people who have believed in me and my artwork. And there were times that were like, it would have been really easy to shut me down because I was like struggling. My sister. Like my sister has always believed in me. Like, no, Maureen, like your art is important. And don't do that, don't do that. Stay with the art. Don't go get a job. Stay with the art. And so like, can you give that to your children? Can you believe in them when they tell you who they are? Because that is how you raise a creative child. And if nobody did that for you, because honestly, like, nobody did that for me growing up. Even if nobody did it for you, can you do it for them? Because my experience is that it pays off tremendously because art is all about love. Art is love. Art is accepting someone and what they want to create and affirming it and celebrating it and encouraging it. And I feel like it's the most beautiful form of love because it's the soul's conversation with God. So anyway, so I think that, so my daughter Annie, she's so funny, oh my gosh. She's such a magnificent force in the world. She's my third child. And when she made art in high school, she essentially made big paintings that looked like vaginas. And I didn't know what to do with them. You know what I mean? It's like, do you hang them up? I mean, like, I didn't know what to do with this. And I was like, so we talked about it. I'm like, do you want to tell me about this? And like, I'm like, Annie, they look like vaginas. Yeah, Mom, they are. You know, like, but they were like beautiful. They weren't ugly. It wasn't anything that was untoward. But there was a conversation there that I was avoiding about her own sexuality and her own identity. And I wasn't ready for that.
Recycling bin, and they're like, why did you throw that away?
Yeah. Yes, yes. Okay, take pictures of it with your phone. Take pictures with your phone. Take pictures with your phone and create digital files and like put it on like, you know, on your computer when you can have like a slideshow. So it's in the home, it's represented, and their artwork comes through. Yeah. Can you find a way to, you know, it's interesting. When I was in college, I had a beautiful friend. Her name was Ariana Evans, and she lived in Market Overton, England. And I met her when I was a student in France in college, and I went to her family home, and her dad was an art teacher. And they had beautifully framed their children's artwork in this like house that was from the 1600s, and it was on like all the walls. And it was amazing. And so, can you just find maybe like in your minimalism, find a few things. Mary Margaret used to draw mermaids all the time, and little girls with dresses, and I framed those. And when she was home last time, she took them in there in her house now. You know what I mean? So there's like a bigger picture here. So could you find just like the really good stuff, you know, and save it, and then everything else just document with your phone, and save it and have a slideshow on your computer. They just want to feel acknowledged. Is that helpful? Okay.
So,
we have this little room in our house that is like our home office that for a year was the kids' art room. And they would go in there with hot glue guns and like markers and paints and pom-poms and googly eyes, and they would just go to town and do art. Like, it was their favorite room in the house. And we recently converted it into the homework room because we pulled all the art stuff out. Because my husband and I were so tired of like complete and utter mess in the room. And like the kids' friends would come over and that's all they want to do is sit in there and do art. But there would be like, I mean, it looked like an explosion. And we just got so tired of, and it got so messy, like the kids just couldn't clean it up themselves. Like they just couldn't, like it was too much. And so, since we've gotten rid of it, they don't really do art anymore, but it's clean and it's a good homework place, but I kind of feel bad about the lack of creativity now.
Do you have a basement?
Yes, and it has toys in it, but I think if we brought like art down with the toys, then it would just get like even crazier. I don't know. I mean, any suggestions?
Yes. May I?
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to learn, like, because I rent space from the Union Church. They have an art studio that I rent, and that's where I teach out of. This was the first summer that I actually went out and bought like painting tarps. I 100% covered the floor, duct taped it to the walls, covered all the tables, and created a space where like if a kid drops their whole palette of paint on the floor, it's not a big deal. And it changed my teaching style so positively, and it changed my experience of teaching because I wasn't worried about cleaning up, and it's a really big deal. And look, like we have these beautiful homes. There's a lot of work that goes into maintaining them and cost. So I would encourage you to consider the possibility that maybe you should have just covered everything in plastic. And at some point you might want to reconsider. Because do you know what I'm saying? So there's this balance between like being so kind to yourself. I understand, like you walk in and the mess feels like it's in your head. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's in your house. But there's a way of like completely taping off the floor and completely, you could drop canvas from the walls to give them a place. How old are they?
I have 7, 5, 2, and
yeah. So you're really in, like, you're in deep. That's, yeah. No, I mean, I had 3 in 3 years. I had 1, 2, 3, and then, and then I had my son a little bit later. Yeah, those are really good. So be really super gentle with yourself, and possibly be open to a time where you would reintroduce an art space into the home, and do it possibly differently in terms of preparing the space. Do you know what I mean? Like really like taping everything off. Covering the floor, covering the walls. And then saying to the children, like, we want to honor you, like having an actual, because they get it. Like having an actual conversation with them, like, this is going to be our art making space, but we need to address things we need to do things a little bit differently in order for us, because this is still our family home. I think kids get that, and they do want to honor it. I don't think you'll regret it. Sure. Hi.
I was just gonna say.
one second.
Sorry. On that note about mess in your home, my kids love to make super messy artwork, and so when the weather's nice, I just send them outside.
It's so
with it.
smart.
And it works great, and then they find other things they want to incorporate, and painting with the sticks, and doing all kinds of things, so that's been one way,
Yeah.
especially when the weather's been nice, that like, we're soaking it up while we can.
That's beautiful. I think that's really, really smart. And there's also the garage too, right? The garage is a really wonderful art making space. I paint oil paint in my garage because I don't want it in my house. And I take off all my clothes before I go back in the house because I don't want like oil paint on my couch, right? Yeah, so there's definitely like a management piece to this that requires a little bit of thought. And but being outside is so smart because that's just supercharging the whole experience. Because they'll find things to stamp, they'll incorporate art nature into their work. That's beautiful. Yeah.
To jump on her, what she was saying,
I'm an artist, so we have an art room in our house and we do art all the time. But so, you know, what I find best, because I'm like the cleanest art person you'll ever meet, minus my hands, but we love the, you know, just putting, like you said, a tarp. But I go to the dollar store and just get like the tablecloths. We use it 2 times and then throw it away. So then that way you don't feel like they're making a huge mess. We bring it out, we put it on the floor, they get creative, put it all, throw it away if you want. So that way, you know, you don't have to feel like there's going to be a huge mess. You don't have to do it on a table, you can just, they don't care. It's like kind of like a picnic craft.
Thank you, that's beautiful. You know, the whole idea of like, I think we need to look at, I wish I would have looked at this concept as a young mother, is like, what am I trying to control? Like, and why is it that this mess completely like puts me out of my orbit? You know what I mean? Like, it's usually that there are other things going on that we feel like we're not acknowledging or controlling, and then we bring it into, I have to control my child's artwork because, and the mess of it, because there are other areas of my life that are so out of control and I'm terrified. That was my experience. Anybody else?
One other quick thing about the mess, we do a lot on trays
Yeah.
in my house. So like my kids will put all the pom-poms and googly eyes and whatever they want on the tray. They do
Yeah.
all their work on the tray.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I just throw the extra stuff away out of the tray. But, so that it doesn't even have to like be put back away necessarily. Because sometimes, yeah, or like with roller beads, you know, those little beads, it just like spills everywhere. So the tray is all good.
The tray's a great idea, as well as the idea of like, okay, we're gonna do just like a massive clean and like everything goes and we start again. And that's tricky because like, I'm so aware of the, you know, the waste and the ecological impact on the earth, and so, yeah, I get that. But there are some times that like for our own sanity, that it goes in the garbage. Yeah. And I hope that we can consider that a kindness to ourselves as well.
No, you're doing it.
Yes.
Thanks, that's a good tip. Where's the best place to buy affordable canvases?
You know, I like Hobby Lobby for that. Yeah,
What are the
it
sales?
depends. Like, you know, I kind of like follow the sales. Michael's has really great sales though too, and it's a beautiful store.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit further out. Yeah. And there's also one of the things I think I'm going to start doing with my ordering for my academy is there's flat canvases that you can buy on Amazon that are like boards that are covered in canvas, and I think that's actually a really nice option.
To start out.
Yeah, and it's also, it takes up a little bit less space, it's a little bit less imposing, and you can just kind of like prop it, you know, so. Sure. Anybody else? Hi.
Dollar Store does have some cheap little canvases, but in the past I've also gone to Goodwill, and when they have the half off certain color price tags, you can buy old canvases, you know, gesso them, prime them, and it's just, you know, whatever.
That's a great idea.
But I want to mention, because you said it, like it's not our job to control our child's artwork, and some of you and I work at Bottle and Bottega in LaGrange, so it's a paint sip studio. We do have kid events there as well. And I can't tell you how many times we have a kid party and the parents are just hovering and they're like, pumpkins, it's not supposed to be purple. Like why, you know, why can't it be purple? Like, the kid is the paintbrush, they are the artist right now. So I know sometimes it's hard to like color, but it's just like let them do it.
And that's really where all the good stuff is, when you let them do their own thing, you know? Thank you for that, yeah.
I wanted to make another suggestion for the gallery wall of your children's art. I saw this product that it was on Instagram advertised to me that is frames that like hinge and they open from the front, so then you can easily kind of change out the artwork. It's like these two wonderful ladies who teach children art. Maybe you've seen it before. Yeah, so that's another good way to get it on the wall. And then I just wanted to say, like, thank you so much. I am a working artist. I was actually getting incredibly emotional to hear her talk. So, but yeah, it's so important for parents to stand up for their children. And that's what my mom has done for me. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Hi. Hello. I have a question. My daughter, she's 5. She gets so frustrated sometimes when she doesn't do something perfect when she's doing
piece of art,
Okay.
and she'll like crumple it up or just put it all over it. And do you have any advice for what to say when she's frustrated?
I do. It's probably the most important conversation that I ever have with a child, because that happens a lot in my classes. And a lot of times it's accompanied by tears. And so it's a really, really important conversation. And it's actually the conversation of a lifetime. If you can help your child to understand, like, you think you made a mistake, but it's really an opportunity to choose again and create something new. And sometimes they can't hear that from you. Sometimes you need to send them to like a class like with me where they need to hear it from someone else. Maybe there's too much closeness. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes they need to hear it, to have that message delivered differently. But if you just keep telling them, and what I would do when that happens, and I know you have so much going on, maybe that beautiful baby there, but is maybe smooth the paper out and say, will you tell me about it? Will you tell me what you think is so wrong? Could we have a conversation about this? I'm here to listen to you. And then as they're talking, really listen and look into their eyes, and then slowly pull your own piece of paper and start to create. And I can pretty much assure you that your child will return to creating through your example.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for your approach. I really appreciate it. I feel like kind of lost today to put kids first, and it's just very caring. So I think they're doing a lot of good. My middle daughter, who's 10, is our resident artist. She's recently gotten into really like large scale, like 4-foot
Beautiful.
paintings. And actually, she works for a lot from Molly Hayward.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
Anyway,
Okay.
that's not important. How do I get her to get past her own anxiety about her work? Like, she is in her happy place when she's painting, but she doesn't necessarily want anyone outside of our family to see it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would make people so happy, like even like grandparents or like just anyone outside of our nucleus. Like, she runs a little anxious and she's a bit self-conscious in general, but then something that brings her so much joy and she doesn't want to share it, I find it kind of odd. So any advice that you have related to that would be great, because she loves, I mean, it's her passion.
Yeah. So she's 10,
Yes.
which is right about the time that a child starts to be very critical of their own work, because there's this shift from like all the wonder and the enchantment and the awe of creation to a critical place of I'm not good enough. It doesn't look like reality, and I don't know what to do. So this is actually probably very much a call for some a skill set that she's seeking. And that happens. It's like, we need support. We need support. So she might be asking, you might, find a time to have a conversation with her, like, did you want to maybe take a drawing class so that you could sharpen your skills and go forward? Because most kids stop right about middle school. And they stop creating. Because it's kind of like, pimples and teeth that aren't exactly right. It's kind of like that place of, I'm not exactly who I want to be yet, and I don't have the skill set to support the vision. So I would look at, but I give the child, your daughter, the privacy of like, I understand that's private and no problem. Because she may be working some things out. I've seen like tremendous things happen with YouTube videos. And I eventually want to start producing my own, but like how to, go to the how-to videos on YouTube, and you can like set them up and teach your child to pause it so that they can make the line the way they want. Because I'm fairly confident that what your child is seeking is a skill set that they don't have yet. Yeah, so start with YouTube videos and then drawing classes.
Awesome, thank you. And do you offer specialized classes like that?
I do. I just started to teach drawing, and it's Mondays, and you can find it on my website. And yes, I'm starting to teach it, and it's interesting because I'm trying to figure out the best way to teach it, because not everybody wants it. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, but when I see a child who wants to learn perspective or vanishing points, and
So individual.
yes, yeah. So
Well, thank you.
my pleasure. Anybody else?
I have 2 kids, 4 and 2.5, and I do not have any kind of marketing in my blood whatsoever. I'm just trying to figure out like how to encourage it more with them, because we have like stuff dot markers, and crayons, and Crayola markers, and watercolors, things that are a little easier to clean up, and that don't give me as much anxiety to clean up.
Right.
But I guess they also just don't sit to do art too, like their attention span just never.
How old are they again?
4 and 2.5.
Yeah, so they're little. They're like little. That's and the attention span is short. Yeah. And can we just talk briefly about this idea that you're not creative? Because that's just not true. Okay? But that's a story that you tell. It's a belief that you have. But the truth is that you are creative. Raise your hand if you're breathing. Is everyone breathing? Because if you're breathing, you are creative. You're creating. You're creating a life. You're creating a home. You're creating, like people say that to me all the time. And I'm like, well, what do? I'm an accountant. Well, actually, that's creative. Because you're thinking you're problem solving. And how do I solve this problem, and how do I deliver this information in a way that's understandable? Creativity is in every aspect of life. And 2 and 4 is the perfect time for you to sit and paint with them and rediscover your own creativity. Because they're certainly not going to judge you. You are mommy. You're like the world. And mommy's making art with us, and how amazing is that? So, I hope that was helpful.
So I agree. I'm kind of more with you where I'm like, wow, art's really frustrating for me, right? Because I never like what I produce or anything like that, right? I don't. And so I have a hard time with it, But as I would categorize myself in the same way. I have found a bunch of Instagram and YouTube and TikTok followers of moms that make it really simple and easy crafts that are also kind of easy to clean up, like you take the Ziploc bags and put paint in them, and then you make colors there. So that's what I would suggest, because I started following them, and it was like they're all good. It just makes it so easy and simple things that they make fun and not hard to clean up either. I'll send it to you, but.
Thank you.
I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Mine's just a suggestion. So, my kids are now 10 and 8, my older ones. There was a place in Westmont. 2 moms opened up a studio, and upstairs you could drop your kid off, or you could you could stay with your kid, and it was just an open art studio.
Really? In Westmont? Do you know the
Yes,
name of
it
it?
was on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
And it was like $5 an hour or $10 an hour if you left your kid.
Okay.
And they just had paint and glue, because people don't like to make their house messy. It was such a great idea, and it only lasted like a year. And it was so nice. But then there's another place in Downers Grove called Applebee's, I think it's called. I'm not sure if that's exactly the name, but I've actually never been there, but I've seen it, where they have open space for you. It's, I think, $10 an hour, and you let your kids run wild with art.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll do our last question.
So we've kind of hopped around this a little bit, but for those of us who either feel that we're not creative or our creativity was not encouraged, and so for me, I feel like I kind of hit a point where I didn't feel encouraged to do it anymore, and so I just stopped.
Yeah.
And how do you pick up those pieces? Because mine's 4 months old, so he's not quite ready for art yet, but when he gets to that point, how do I encourage him when I didn't necessarily feel that behind myself?
You know what? I think your love for your child will develop to a point that you're just going to know what to do to give him what you didn't get. That's just like an instinctual mother thing. That was my experience. But I think it starts with you remembering what you love, and maybe going back and do you have any of your artwork left? Yeah, start to review it and forgive. the idea that something went wrong. You know what I mean? Because you can pick it up anytime you want. So it's just really allowing yourself the privilege of creating and being super gentle with yourself. You know, it's not too late. So is that, so that's the end of the questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maureen, thank you so much.
I want to ask everyone to imagine a world as we end. And then I'd just like to close this in prayer, if that's okay. Okay. So I want to imagine a world, and if you want to close your eyes, that's great. Imagine a world where everybody was encouraged. And everybody was exactly who they came here to be. And that was good and perfect and acceptable. That's the power that you have as mothers to create that world for your child. Oh, and I also want to mention, and then I'll close this in prayer, that I'm hiring teachers. If anyone's interested in teaching for me, my information is on that card on the table. And I'm in the District 181 schools in the after-school program. It's my first year of expanding. I just hired 2 teachers, and I'm looking to hire more. So, and I'll train you. And so please let me know if you're interested in that. I know it's tricky because, like, if you have little kids, it's like after-school time and stuff. But I'm like expanding my summer programs, and would love to support you. I feel like everyone who comes to me, whether it's like a summer intern or that. It's my job to encourage their creativity as well. So, all right. So, if we could just close our eyes for a moment. I'm so grateful to acknowledge the presence of love that is in this room. Love that is benevolent and gentle, creative and kind. Love that holds all color, all form, all shape, all knowing. It is from a place of oneness with this great love, with everyone in this room, that I call forth and I claim for every woman, parent, human being in this space, the joy of creation, the deep knowing that they are loved from all of eternity and perfect and holy children of God. I give thanks for all of the miracles that will unfold from this place and from these words as they are received into the heart of God for their expansion and into divine intelligence into the mind of God, or the action, execution, and manifestation into physical reality of experiencing our own creativity and our children's creativity. So we welcome this experience, allowing it to happen. By together saying, and so it is, amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now, you guys should have